I acted like a poor and naive mother once I met my brother-in-law's family. And that visit I almost declined. Changed everything I believed about pride, kindness, and family. That's how it all began. My name is Clara, and I've learned that life has a way of humbling you, even when you've already learned to be humble. I wasn't born into wealth, but I wasn't poor either. My late husband George worked hard all his life, and together we built a quiet, comfortable home. Nothing grand, but enough to raise our daughter, Lily, with love and dignity. After George passed, Lily got married and moved to the city. Her husband David was a good man, kind at heart, but his family, the Parkers, were a different story. They were what you'd call well off, and they made sure everyone knew it. I never felt comfortable around them. They never said anything cruel outright, but every time I was around them, I could feel it. The way they looked at my plain clothes, my simple purse, the way I spoke softly instead of loudly. It wasn't judgment in words, it was judgment in silence. So, when David called one spring afternoon and said, "Mom, my family wants to meet you for the weekend," at our house, I hesitated. Part of me wanted to say no, but another part whispered, "Go, Clara. Let them see who you are, not what you wear." So, I went. That Friday morning, I packed a small suitcase, 2 dresses, a cardigan, and an old pair of shoes I'd polished till they shined. I could have worn something new, but something in me said, "No, let them see you as you are, the real you." When I arrived, Lily greeted me at the door. I could see the tension in her eyes before she even spoke. "Mom," she said softly, maybe don't talk too much about what, dear?" I smiled. She hesitated. "About Dad's old business, or the property. They wouldn't understand." I knew what she meant. She didn't want me to sound like I had anything valuable, or like I was proud of something. Her husband's family believed in appearances, brands, names, bank accounts, and she was afraid that if they thought I had something, they'd judge her differently, or think she was pretending. So, I nodded. "Don't worry, sweetheart. I'm just here to be your mother. Nothing more." Inside the living room, I saw them, Mr. and Mrs. Parker sitting on a white leather sofa. They looked exactly how I remembered, polished, elegant, and just a little too perfect. "Ah, Clara," Mrs. Parker said, rising to greet me. "So good of you to come. You must be tired from your little trip." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Yes," I said, smiling back. The bus ride was long, but I enjoyed looking out at the hills, reminded me of home. She blinked, perhaps surprised that I didn't drive myself. They offered me tea, served in delicate cups that looked like they'd never known a dishwasher. I thanked them kindly, but the air was heavy, the kind of air where you have to measure every word before it leaves your mouth. When dinner came, I sat at the long table beside Lily. Across from me sat Mr. Parker, who kept clearing his throat between questions. "So, Clara," he began, "how do you spend your days now? I imagine it must be quiet out there." "It is," I said, smiling gently. "I take care of the garden, and sometimes I help at the church kitchen." Mrs. Parker raised her brows. "The church kitchen?" "Yes. We cook for families who've lost jobs or fallen on hard times." I said it proudly, but the silence that followed told me they didn't see it the same way. "Oh, that's sweet," she said finally, her tone flat. They went on about their business, their investments, their golf club, their new vacation plans. I sat quietly, nodding where it felt right, letting their words wash over me. But what I didn't expect was the smallest voice at the end of the table, their granddaughter, Emma. "Grandma Clara," she said shyly, "can you tell me about your garden? Mommy says you grow sunflowers." Her voice cut through the pretense like sunlight through clouds. I smiled. "Yes, dear. They grow tall, taller than you, and they always face the sun, no matter what." She giggled. "Even on cloudy days?" "Especially then," I said softly, "because they know the sun is still there, even if they can't see it. Mrs. Parker didn't say anything after that, but I noticed her eyes flicker, just a hint of something softer, maybe curiosity, maybe discomfort. That night, Lily helped me settle in the guest room. I could see she was embarrassed, not of me, but of how her family had acted. "Mom," she whispered, "they're just like that. Don't take it personally." I touched her hand. "Oh, honey, you don't need to explain them to me. I've met people like them all my life." "But you deserve better," she said. I smiled. "So do they, sweetheart. They just don't know it yet." Later that night, as I sat by the window, I looked out at their manicured backyard, trimmed hedges, sparkling lights, perfect symmetry, and for some reason, I felt sad. Not for myself, but for them, because I could see how hard they tried to look happy, and how little time they spent being happy. As I drifted off to sleep, I promised myself one thing: I'd keep being kind, no matter how they treated me. Because sometimes, kindness is the only language pride understands. And little did I know, by the end of that weekend, that language would change everything they believed about me and about themselves. The next morning, I woke up before everyone else. Old habits never leave you, especially when you've spent most of your life rising before dawn to make breakfast for your family. I washed up quietly and made my way to the kitchen. The house was silent, except for the soft hum of the refrigerator. I wanted to make myself a cup of tea, but when I opened a drawer, I found rows of polished silver spoons, each placed as if part of a museum exhibit. I smiled to myself. Even their spoons had a sense of pride. Then I saw Emma standing at the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "Grandma Clara," she whispered, "are you making tea?" "Yes, sweetheart," I said. "Would you like some warm milk?" She nodded eagerly, so I warmed a small pot. When I handed her the cup, she smiled up at me, sleepy, innocent, full of the kind of love that doesn't know pride yet. "I like you," she said suddenly. I chuckled softly. "And I like you too, dear." It was such a small moment, but in that big, cold house, it felt like the only one that mattered. Few hours later, the family began to stir. Mrs. Parker walked into the kitchen, perfectly dressed, her perfume arriving before she did. "Oh," she said, her voice clipped. "You're up early." "Yes," I smiled. "Old habits." I made some tea and warm milk for Emma. She paused, as if unsure whether to thank me or correct me. "That's kind," she said finally, "but next time you can just let the staff handle it." I nodded politely. Of course. But inside, I couldn't help but wonder how a home with so many helping hands could still feel so lonely. Later that day, they invited a few guests for lunch, relatives and friends from the neighborhood. It was meant to be a casual family gathering, but by the way they set the table, you'd think royalty was visiting. The long dining table gleamed under a crystal chandelier. The silverware shone so bright I could almost see my reflection. Mrs. Parker instructed one of the maids to fold each napkin into perfect triangles, and when I offered to help, she smiled tightly and said, "Oh no, Clara, please just relax. We don't want you to strain yourself." Strain myself? I'd once prepared meals for 50 people at our church fundraiser with one old stove and a leaky faucet, but I simply smiled and stepped back. Sometimes silence says more than pride ever could. When everyone finally sat down, I took my seat at the end of the table. Not because anyone told me to, but because that's where I felt most comfortable. The conversation started light. Vacations, renovations, Emma's school awards. But it soon turned into a display of subtle comparisons. Who had the better car? Whose husband made the smarter investment? I could almost feel the air growing heavier with every word. At one point, Mrs. Parker turned to me and said, "So, Clara, what did you do before retirement? You know, back when you were busy?" I smiled. "Oh, I worked in education for a time. Then George and I opened a small furniture workshop. He was quite the craftsman. Her husband raised an eyebrow. Ah, a small business then. Family run? Yes, I said proudly. He built everything by hand, and I helped manage the accounts. Mrs. Parker laughed lightly, though I could tell it wasn't humor. That must have been quaint. The others at the table chuckled softly, not out of cruelty, but because they followed her lead. That's how pride works, quietly contagious. I could feel Lily stiffen beside me. Her hand brushed against mine under the table, a small, trembling touch that said, "I'm sorry," but I didn't need her apology. Instead, I smiled at her and continued eating as though their words were nothing more than dust in the wind. Then Mr. Parker leaned forward. "You know, Clara, I always admire people who manage to make do with so little. It takes a certain spirit." I looked him straight in the eye and said gently, "Yes, and sometimes having less teaches you more than having plenty ever could." He smiled faintly, unsure how to reply. The table went quiet for a few seconds. It wasn't confrontation. It was truth, spoken softly. After lunch, while everyone moved to the patio for coffee, I began to clear a few dishes. Lily whispered, "Mom, please don't. They'll think—" I touched her arm. "Let them think whatever they like, sweetheart. I know who I am." When I walked into the kitchen, one of the maids, a young woman named Grace, looked at me gratefully. "Thank you, ma'am," she said quietly. "They never let anyone help." I smiled. "Sometimes helping isn't about permission, dear. It's about kindness." As we rinsed plates together, Grace told me a bit about her life, how she worked 2 jobs to support her little boy, how she hadn't seen her family in months. I listened. Sometimes listening is the best gift you can give. When Mrs. Parker walked in and saw me, her eyes widened. "Oh, Clara," she said with a nervous laugh, "you really don't have to do that. The help is here for a reason." I dried my hands and replied softly, "I know, but I find joy in simple things. Old habits die hard." She didn't respond, but I caught something flicker across her face. Discomfort. Maybe guilt. The evening, after everyone had left, the house felt quieter. I sat by the fireplace with Emma, reading her a little story about a bird that built its nest from broken twigs. She listened closely, her tiny hand resting on mine. When I finished, she asked, "Grandma Clara, is it bad to be poor?" The question caught me off guard. "Why do you ask that, sweetheart?" "Because Mommy says being poor makes life hard, but you seem happy." I smiled gently. "Being poor in money is one thing, darling, but being poor in heart, that's something else entirely." She thought for a moment, then whispered, "I think you're rich." My throat tightened. I kissed her forehead and said, "Maybe I am, my dear. Maybe I am." Later that night, I overheard voices from the hallway, Mrs. Parker and Lily. "She's kind, I'll give her that," Mrs. Parker said, "but she doesn't quite fit in here. The way she talks, the things she says, she doesn't understand our world." I stood still, just out of sight, and then I heard my daughter's voice, trembling but firm. "Maybe, Mother, it's us who don't understand hers." There was a long pause, then footsteps, and silence. And when I went back to my room that night, I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at my reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back wasn't angry, she wasn't hurt, she was at peace. Because I realized something that night. The people who judge you the most often do it because they fear being judged themselves. And in that big, cold house filled with chandeliers and fine china, I finally saw how small pride could look beside simple grace. I closed my eyes and whispered a little prayer, not for myself, but for them. Because someday I hoped they'd see what I already knew. True worth isn't in what you own. It's in how you make others feel. The next morning, the air in that big house felt heavy. Not with anger, but with the kind of silence that follows after words people don't want to admit they said. I could tell Mrs. Parker was quieter than usual. Her smile was still there, but thinner, like it had been ironed on. Lily avoided my eyes at breakfast, and little Emma kept glancing between us, sensing what children always sense, the truth adults try to hide. "Sleep well, Clara?" Mrs. Parker asked, sipping her coffee. "Like a baby," I said gently. "Your guest room feels warmer than it looks." She smiled politely, but said nothing more. I decided then and there that I wouldn't let the chill in that house reach my heart. So I put on my cardigan, stepped outside, and went for a little walk around their garden. It was beautiful. Perfectly trimmed roses, neat little rows of white lilies, and not a single weed in sight. But it was the kind of beauty that felt tired. Like something done to impress others, not to be loved. Back home, my garden had wildflowers that grew where they pleased, and bees that hummed lazily in the sun. It was messy, but alive. As I bent down to smell one of their lilies, I noticed something curious. The soil was dry, hard. It hadn't been watered properly in days. I found a small watering can nearby and gave them a little drink. Just a few minutes later, a maid hurried over. "Mrs. Parker doesn't like anyone touching the flowers," she whispered nervously. "Oh," I said, smiling kindly. "I'll stop then." But as I walked back toward the house, I couldn't help thinking, some people don't just guard their gardens. They guard their hearts the same way. Later that afternoon, Mrs. Parker asked if I'd like to join her for tea in the sunroom. I accepted, though I had a feeling it wasn't just for tea. She poured from a fine china pot, her movements graceful and deliberate. "Clara," she began, "I hope you don't think we're unkind. We just live differently, that's all." "I understand," I said softly. "Different doesn't have to mean unkind." She paused, studying me carefully. "I suppose you must think we're shallow, always talking about money, travel, status." I shook my head. "I don't think that, but I do think it's easy to mistake comfort for happiness." She gave a small, humorless laugh. "You sound like my late mother." She used to say things like that. "Did you listen to her?" I asked gently. She looked away. "Not enough." For a moment, the mask slipped. Her eyes softened, and I saw something underneath the polished surface. Exhaustion, regret, maybe even fear. It struck me then. Everyone in this house was wearing a mask. That evening, I offered to read Emma a bedtime story again. She ran to me with her favorite book, but halfway through, she whispered, "Grandma Clara, Mommy and Daddy fight sometimes. Does that mean they don't love each other?" My heart sank. "Oh, sweetheart," I said, brushing her hair back. "Even people who love each other forget how to speak kindly sometimes. But love isn't about never fighting. It's about finding your way back after you do." She thought about that, then hugged me tightly. "I wish they could be like you and Grandpa," she said. I smiled, but my eyes stung. "Your grandpa and I had our moments too," I whispered. "But we never forgot we were on the same side." When she drifted to sleep, I sat by her bed for a long time, listening to the quiet ticking of the clock and the faint murmurs coming from the hallway. The next morning, I caught a glimpse of something that told me all was not as perfect as they wanted the world to believe. I was passing by the study when I heard raised voices, Mr. Parker and his son David. "You promised the investors," Mr. Parker said sharply. "I didn't promise. I said I'd try," David replied, his tone tight. "Do you have any idea what's at stake? This family's reputation?" "Reputation won't pay the bills, Father," David shot back. "The company's struggling. We need to cut back." I froze. It wasn't my place to listen, but their words painted a picture clearer than any portrait in that house. The Parkers weren't as secure as they seemed. Behind all that polish, there were cracks, deep, spreading ones. I stepped away quietly, but not before I caught the sound of Mrs. Parker's voice joining in. "Please," she pleaded softly, "not now, not while we have guests." That's when I realized appearances were their armor and fear was their chain. At lunch, I noticed Mr. Parker was quieter than usual. He picked at his food, staring off into the distance. Mrs. Parker smiled too much, trying to smooth over what couldn't be unseen. Lily, on the other hand, looked torn, glancing at me as if she wanted to tell me something but couldn't. When the meal ended, I took her aside. "Sweetheart," I said softly, "you don't have to protect me from anything. I can see it in your eyes." She sighed, her shoulders slumping. "Mom, things aren't as perfect as they seem here. David's business is under pressure. His parents are terrified of losing everything. And She looked down. "I'm caught in the middle." I touched her cheek gently. "Then don't lose yourself trying to hold everyone else together." Her eyes welled up. "I just want peace, Mom." "I know," I said. "But peace doesn't come from pretending. It comes from truth, spoken kindly." And that evening, as the house settled into its quiet routines, I wandered into the hallway where family photos lined the walls. Perfect smiles, matching clothes, summer vacations, the picture of success. But now that I'd seen what lay beneath, each frame looked a little different. The smiles too wide, the eyes a little empty. Then one photo caught my attention, an old one, faded at the edges. It showed Mrs. Parker as a young woman, standing in front of a small cottage holding a baby. No designer clothes, no jewelry, just sunlight, wind, and laughter. I realized then she hadn't always been this way. Life had turned her hard, not because she wanted to be cruel, but because she thought strength meant never showing weakness, and I understood her a little more. Later, when everyone had gone to bed, I quietly walked to the kitchen. I found a little notepad on the counter and wrote a short note. "When the soil is too dry, even the finest flowers wither. Sometimes all they need is a bit of kindness to bloom again." I didn't sign it. I just left it under a vase of lilies, the same ones I'd watered that morning. And the next day, Mrs. Parker was different, softer, quieter. When she saw me at breakfast, she said, "Clara, the lilies look beautiful today. Did you notice?" "Yes," I smiled. "A little water goes a long way." She didn't say anything else, but her eyes glistened just for a moment. That afternoon, as I packed my things for my journey home, I felt something warm inside me. Not pride, but peace. Because I realized that even in a house built on pride, kindness still finds its way in, like sunlight sneaking through closed curtains. But little did I know, before I left that weekend, another truth would come to the table. One that would change not just how they saw me, but how they saw themselves. I couldn't sleep that night. Even with the guest room window open and the countryside's breeze slipping through the curtains, my mind wouldn't rest. Every whisper of the wind seemed to echo the same question. What were they hiding from me? I stared at the ceiling, my heart heavy with memories and half answers. The house felt too quiet, as if it was holding its breath. Downstairs, I could almost hear the soft tick of the clock in the hallway and the faint creak of the stairs that always betrayed movement. Then, just after midnight, I heard it, the distinct clatter of dishes. I rose, careful not to wake Emma, and made my way to the kitchen. The lights were dim, but enough to see Martha, my sister-in-law, standing by the counter. She was holding a box wrapped in an old kitchen towel. When she turned and saw me, she froze, like a child caught sneaking sweets. "Martha," I whispered, "what are you doing up so late?" She didn't answer right away. Her eyes darted to the box. Then she sighed, her shoulders dropping. "You should go back to bed, Nora," she murmured. It's nothing." But I'd lived too many years as a mother to be fooled by that trembling voice, so I stepped closer. "If it's nothing, then why are your hands shaking?" Martha's eyes filled with tears before she even spoke. She placed the box on the table and slowly unwrapped the towel. Inside, I saw silver, dull from years of hiding but beautiful still. Engraved plates, cups, and cutlery with a family crest. My late husband's family crest. I gasped. Yes, Martha interrupted softly. "Your husband's? Daniel's father gave it to your family before he passed? But after your accident, when you..." Left the house? Your brother-in-law took them back? I reached out, my fingers trembling as I touched one of the spoons. Why would they take what wasn't theirs? Martha swallowed hard. Because they believed you didn't deserve them. They said you married beneath yourself and that the family silver should stay with the right branch of the family. I let out a shaky breath, half from pain, half from disbelief. And you? You agreed? Her eyes filled with shame. I didn't know what to say back then. I was new in the family. Your brother-in-law, he was proud, always comparing, always reminding me I wasn't enough either. We sat in silence for a long time. The silver between us gleamed like a mirror reflecting all the years of silence, pride, and misunderstanding. Then she whispered, I kept them hidden because I couldn't bear to see how he treated you when you visited. I wanted to give them back one day, but then you stopped coming, and the years just went by. I looked at her face, worn, tired, and more human than I'd ever allowed myself to see. For the first time, I realized Martha wasn't the enemy I'd imagined. She too had been surviving under the same roof of fear and judgment. You've carried this guilt all these years? I asked gently. She nodded. Every single time I set the table, I thought of you. I smiled softly and reached across the table to take her hand. Then let this be the last night you carry it, my dear. What matters isn't silver or pride. It's that you still have a heart that remembers right from wrong. Her tears flowed freely then, and we sat there, two women bound not by rivalry, but by shared exhaustion, and, at last, a spark of understanding. I told her about my life after leaving, the tiny cottage I moved into, the nights when I had nothing but tea and hope, how Emma grew up humble and kind, how I learned to live without expecting anyone to see my worth. Martha listened as if she'd been waiting to hear every word. Then she rose quietly, went to a drawer, and pulled out a small envelope. I wasn't supposed to show you this, she said, placing it before me. Your brother-in-law kept it hidden. My fingers hesitated over the seal before opening it. Inside was an old letter from my husband's father. His handwriting was shaky but unmistakable. To my dear Nora, if you are reading this, it means I am gone. I want you to have the family silver. You brought warmth to my son's life, and that is worth more than any inheritance. Promise me you'll keep your kindness. It is rarer than gold. My throat tightened. I read it twice, then 3 times. My hands trembled. He wanted me to have it, I whispered. He trusted me with it. Martha nodded. He did. But they couldn't stand that you were the one chosen. I looked at the silver again. It wasn't about wealth anymore. It was about truth. And the truth was finally in the open, shining beneath the kitchen light, after years of dust and silence. When I looked up at Martha again, I saw not judgment, but relief. Let's set the table, I said quietly. For breakfast, she asked, puzzled. No, I smiled. For peace. So we did. We laid out the old silver on the dining table, polished it, and let it catch the morning light as dawn crept through the windows. It was as if the house itself was exhaling a long-held sigh. Later that morning, when my brother-in-law came down, his eyes widened at the sight. He froze in the doorway, staring at the silver that had once been his badge of pride, now resting calmly in my hands. I didn't say a word. I just poured him a cup of tea, the same way I used to years ago, when things were still good between us. He didn't speak either, but his face turned pale. Sometimes silence speaks more truth than any accusation could. I didn't need to fight anymore. The truth was already laid out, right there beneath the silver. The morning light fell gently through the curtains, and for the first time in years, the house didn't feel heavy. It felt open. I sat at the dining table with the silver gleaming before me. Not as a trophy, not as a prize, not as a weapon of pride, but as a reminder of what had been hidden and now revealed. Martha and I had spent the night talking, sharing stories, and even laughing softly about things we'd long forgotten. The walls no longer whispered judgment, they seemed to breathe relief. I knew then that my work here was done. Not because I had changed anyone's habits or pride, but because I had shown them something far harder to teach: kindness without expectation. Lily came in quietly, carrying Emma in her arms. "Mom," she whispered, "are you leaving today?" I nodded. "Yes, sweetheart, but I'm leaving with peace and hope that this family can see themselves as they truly are." Emma's eyes were wide. "Grandma, will they be okay?" I smiled and kissed her forehead. "They will, darling. Sometimes it just takes a little time for people to see the light inside themselves." Lily took a deep breath and hugged me tightly. "Thank you, Mom, for being you, for showing them, for showing me how to carry myself with grace." Her words settled in my chest like warm sunlight. I had done what I came to do. Before leaving, I went to the front door. I paused for a long moment, my hand resting on the old brass handle. This house had held so much tension, so many hidden faces, so many silent judgments. But it had also revealed truth, forgiveness, and the possibility of change. I whispered softly, "Goodbye," and stepped out. Outside, the air was crisp. The garden, once just a show of perfection, now looked almost alive. The lilies I had watered were still upright, gleaming in the morning sun, a quiet testament to care and patience. I looked back once more. The house was beautiful, yes, but now it was also human. Flawed, frightened, and full of potential for better days. And I knew it would never see me the same way again, nor would I see it as merely a place of judgment. On the drive home, my thoughts wandered. I thought of George, of Lily, of little Emma, and even of Martha. I thought of all the times I had worried about appearances, about being taken for less than I was, and how meaningless those fears had been. Life had a way of testing your patience and humility. And in that house, I had learned a final beautiful lesson: that dignity and grace cannot be measured by silver, wealth, or approval. They are measured in love, kindness, and the courage to stay true to yourself. And as I neared my own little cottage, I felt lighter than I had in years. I opened my door, stepped inside, and closed it behind me. It wasn't just the physical door I closed. It was the door to worry, to fear, to the opinions of others. I had carried that door for too long. Now, I left it behind. Later, when Lily called to tell me that her parents had spoken softly, really listened, and even apologized for small things, I smiled. I didn't need to hear everything. The truth had done its work. The lessons were planted. The family, and my own heart, had been set free. Sometimes the smallest actions, a gesture of care, a quiet word, a simple act of truth, can shift entire worlds. And as I sat by the window, watching the sunset paint my garden gold, I whispered to myself, I acted like a poor and naive mother when I met my brother-in-law's family. But it turned out I was richer than I ever knew, rich in heart, rich in patience, rich in love. And with that, I poured myself a cup of tea, settled into my favorite chair, and finally, fully, felt at peace. If you love stories, emotions like this, then do me a quick favor, hit that subscribe button, because this channel is just getting started. More stories, more insane emotions, love, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. See you in the next one.